Hello, everybody. My name is Philip Nelson, and I'm going to take you through a journey about how I purchased this particular 6 unit building with no money down. I didn't use any of my money. Okay. Give you a little background on why I am doing this video. A gentleman named Pablo, a few days ago, he put out a video about his 7 unit apartment building and all the trials and tribulations he was having. He was bleeding money. He was paying thousands of dollars in expenses every month, and he didn't know what he was going to do. And that led me to also do my own video. Also, Antoine from the Morning Breakfast Club, I believe he also did a review of Pablo's video. So I just wanted to share with you guys on how I did this deal. I did it with no money out of my pocket, not a single dollar, and how I found the deal, I structured the deal, and how I financed and negotiated this deal. I wanted to share that with the community because I think it's important and give you a little bit of background about myself. So by trade, I'm a property manager. I've been a property manager for the last 12 years. I started from the bottom up in the corporate world. So I started as a doorman, then a concierge, then I became a leasing agent, then I did bookkeeping, then assistant manager, then property manager. And I was also a floating property manager actually at first. I kind of, if someone went on leave or got sick or got fired, I would fill the time temporarily. And then that actually led to my first job as a property manager of 472 unit complex, garden style in Alexandria, Virginia. Okay. So sit back, buckle up. Let me run you through this deal. Cool. All right. So the first thing I think that people need to be aware of when they are beginners like I was with this deal is you're not really going to be able to get your deals through wholesalers and stuff like that. You're probably going to have to um, take advantage of the resources out there for everybody. It's really the MLS, right? Zillow and things like that. So that's what I did. And the first thing I wanted a deal, right? So what I looked at is I'm looking at days on market. That's the first thing I'm looking at because I need a deal that which I have negotiating power as the buyer, right? So uh, this particular home or multifamily property, it was listed in August, okay, 22 for 230. Then the price dropped 1 year later, August of 23 to 199,000. So, $31,000 drop. That's very interesting. And then the very next month, September of 23, it dropped to 175,000. So I'm like, whoa, at that point, my alarm bells are going off. So I'm like, that told me a few things, but three in particular. One is maybe the price is soft, right? Maybe, the market, that's probably not a good price for that particular product. Then I said, well, maybe the condition, maybe it's not in, it's dilapidated or substandard condition, and maybe that scared investors away. And then the third, I said, well, it also could mean that the seller is very motivated, right? He went from 230, then the next year he went to 199. Then the next month he went to 175. So he really, really wants to sell his property. At least that was my initial thoughts. Okay. Look at my notes. So I want to break down the unit mix. 6 units. This is how it was broken down. So I got two over here. Actually, I got two bedrooms. I got 2 bedroom here, 2 bedroom here. They were both written for 800 down bottom and 715 at top. And then over on this side, I have 2 1 bedrooms. Down bottom was written for 630. Up top was written for 720. I have a studio. If you go around back here, you can't see it, but on the side is a studio. It was actually a basement that made into an apartment. That was rented for 660. And also, if you go even further back up here, you can see it as well. It's a 3 unit that they added as an addition. That was vacant at the time. So I got two bedrooms, 2 1 bedrooms, a studio, and 1 3 bedroom. But however, that was vacant at the time, right? So one of the first things that I did was I actually called the listing agent, and they really gave me a lot of information, right? They said, look, this is a doghouse. I mean, it needs a lot of work, right? The seller is in financial distress. They didn't say that, but they said he was in divorce and he had to sell, right? So that means, wait a minute, this person has to sell. that really was a bargaining tool for me because I knew at that point it's just a matter of working the right numbers, right? And he let me know it had some deferred maintenance on it, so that made me believe even if he wanted to keep it, he really couldn't because it had maintenance that needed to be done, and he probably couldn't afford or was unwilling to do it, right? All right, so let's go down into my negotiation, right? So now to get into my negotiation, one of the first things, the strongest things you're going to have in your negotiation toolkit is the inspection, guys. You need that inspection because the inspection is going to reveal or unearth some defects. I don't care what type of property it is, the inspection is going to tell you something, right? So use that as a leverage tool, right? So what I did was I got the inspection and it revealed a lot of things. It revealed that the property needed 2 roofs. The property had some leak soil stacks, drain lines, and the property has some foundation issues, right? And I saw that that's probably what scared a lot of people away. And truthfully, it almost scared me away because I showed it to some of my friends, and they was like, "No, man, this is gonna be a money pit." You know what I mean? This is it's too much work or stuff like that. But it was only really one guy who kind of I was already believing in it anyway, but there's one guy who really helped me. At the time, I was managing a condominium building, and I had a gentleman named Oscar who was one of the maintenance techs. And I said, Oscar, man, let me look at this inspection report, all these hazards and stuff. And he said, Philip, man, don't let that scare you. He said, man, he said, I'm from, I live in Washington, D.C. This property is in Pennsylvania. He was like, man, I'll drive up with you on a weekend and we'll go see it. He was like, do not let this scare you. He was like, that's the issue. Everything could be fixed. So when he said that to me, it gave me a little bit of reassurance, right? So remember, I put this particular property under contract for the 175, what it was listed as at the time, right? Remember, it went from 230 to 199 to 175. That was enough for me to put it under contract. Once I got this inspection done, I said, look, based on all that it needs, A, B, C, and D, I give you 100,000 for it. And the seller was pissed. Man, he was pissed. He wrote this long letter about, I thought maybe it had some racial undertones to it, but he was like, who are you? You're trying to put $75,000 off of the price, and you must be a beginner, you're young guy and stuff like that. And I was like, damn. So I showed that to my friend. My friend was like, man, this deal's done, man. This deal's done. You see how he responded? It's over. See, I think everything in a positive light. I said, no, the fact that he took his time out, this 70-year-old guy, to write this email with all these typos and all these grammatical errors, all caps, that means he is activated, which is good. I said, it's good. That is a part of the negotiation. I'm not taking it personal. Let it simmer. So I let it simmer for a couple of days, or maybe it was a week, and then he came back. He said, look, man, 150. I said, look, man, 135. So we settled at a price of 135. Okay. So the inspection was golden. It created leverage, and it got me down to a price that I thought it was worth, and he agreed to that it was worth, right? I still think I paid a little bit too much. He probably still think he could have got more. That's always a great deal when nobody is satisfied. We'll meet somewhere in the middle, okay? Now, boom, I got it 135. Now I gotta go get the money, right? So, damn, now I gotta go get the money. So there's two ways you could do it. One way, and I'm gonna break it down both ways. So first I went to a local lender, Cal. A local lender is good because what a cons to a local lender is they have limited options, right? They usually just at one bank, they have limited options. The pros is that they have unique products sometimes, right? And they know the area a little bit more, right? They know the market more. So for this particular product, rather than put 25% down, which is what you have to put on a standard investment property, Kyle said, look, man, I have a program that you could put 20% down, but it's a caveat. The caveat is, well, someone from the county has to be on the loan. I didn't live in the county, so I'm like, damn. So he said, look, man, they just got to be listed on a loan. So I called my brother. He lived in the county. I said, hey, man, bro, I want to know if you can get on this loan with me. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to manage anything. All you got to do is be listed on paperwork so I can get the 20% down loan. He said, no. He was like, I don't know nothing about this. I'm not a real estate guy. What if I want to buy a house? What if it goes bad? You just starting off, didn't know. I took no offense to it. Boom. So my friend had a father, and he was like, man, my dad to do whatever I asked him to do. So went to the dad. The dad was like, cool, I'll do it. His dad was a little bit older, was pretty good. Then we get to the underwriting part, and he had to provide all his W-2s, his tax returns, and statements. And he was like, look, I don't even know where some of my tax returns are. He couldn't find it. So that led to me really, that fell apart. So I had to go to a third person. But before I got to a third person, the deal went bad because of something I did. It was a rookie mistake. So when I got this inspection report, I believe that you shared this with the lender, and I shared it with the lender. And it was one of the worst mistakes I ever made, because when the lender saw all of these flags, foundation, roof, brick pointing, he was like, dude, we can't fund this loan at all. And I'm like, what you mean? You just said you could. And he said, no, this is a turnkey product. This particular property has some, what did he call it? He said it has some repair risk. He said, dude, we can't fund this particular property. And he said, dude, I would recommend you probably just back away altogether. I said, why, Kyle? He said, first of all, you're a beginner, right? Everybody's scared of you. You're riskier. You don't have any experience. He said, I don't think there is a product on the market for a beginner. Just give it up. I said, damn, man, maybe the dream is over. But I am very resilient. So I went and I got another lender, right? I pivoted. And now I deal with a broker, right? A broker is different. A broker doesn't just deal with one institution. They have relationships with multiple lenders and banks, right? So now I'm dealing with Jim. Jim, he said something that reassured me from the first time I introduced this particular property to him. Jim said, you know what? Man, he just looked at the numbers and he said, man, this property is going to perform well for you. And I said, yeah, but Jim, man, I got a problem. Now, I didn't share the inspection with Jim, but I verbalized something. I said, look, man, this property needs a lot of work done. And Jim said, okay, well, wait a minute. Let's wait. Let's order the appraisal and let's see what happens after that. I ordered the appraisal. The appraisal comes in at $245. Now, remember, I got it on the contract for $135. He said, this is what I want you to do, Philip. He said, I want you to get a contractor to give me a list of all the things that are needed to all of the heavy ticket capital items. I want you to get a contractor to list everything, right? And prices. And you say, whatever prices they give you, I want you to go back to that contractor and say, put 10 to 15% on top of that. He said, because I wanted, he said, you want to deal with, maybe they underquoted you. You don't know. So that's what I did. And that number came out to $75,000, right? That is what we went to the bank to ask for a repair credit for, right? Now, everything don't always go the way you think it's going to go. The bank said, no, you give you $75,000, out your damn mind. But they said, look, we'll give you 40, right? Okay. So this is how this is how it broke down. It broke down. The appraisal came in at $245. The purchase price is $135. The repair credit was $40. So a loan amount now that I would take out will be $175. And all that is, guys, is the $135 purchase price plus the $40. $175, right? So because it appraised so high, right? It appraised at $245. The loan is for $175. So what happened was I had $40,000 as a gross to the seller, to the buyer, right? But what about the closing costs? Well, the closing cost was 10,000. So what they did was they just took 10,000 away from the 40. And when I closed, they gave me a check for 30 grand. I did not pay anything out my pocket. Now, you say, well, damn, what about a management company, right? So I wrote a real good response to the lender because they was asking, well, who's gonna manage it? And I wrote down all my credentials, everything I've done in my life. I gave them almost like a snapshot of my resume. I'm like, look, I've managed properties 10 times this. You know what I mean? I have this designation as a property manager. I have that designation as a property manager. So there's no way to tell me that I can't fully run this from top to bottom, from finance, from accounting to everything. And they said, okay, you don't need a property manager. Normally, you would have to have this evidence that a property manager would manage this. In my case, I didn't have that because I already had the expertise, and I sold the bank on that, right? So the appraisal again, very very important. To pull this off, you got to have high appraisal, and you got to get the property at a substantial discount. And some of the cons to a property like this is you're going to have a lot of maintenance, right? Even as I sit here, I haven't made no profit from this property, but I'm okay with that, right? I've owned it for a year and a half. I've reinvested all the property back in to fixing all of the issues, right? And I said, look, even if I don't make profit for another 5 years, that's fine with me because then at that point, once all this stuff is done, my mortgage at the end of the day is 1,303. That's right, $1,303, right? And remember the numbers I just gave you for the unit rents. Some of them are a little bit more now. I got a unit now that's renting out for $1,000, the 3 bedroom that was vacant. So, one unit is almost my mortgage payment, right? So, but every month there's also some leaking, some pipes that need to be fixed, and some of the residents here have been here for a long time, and the previous owner didn't do any work to the apartment, so I got diverters I gotta change, I got ovens and stoves that are beyond their life, stuff like that, right? But the way I looked at it is like, look, I was able, as a property manager, I was getting calls 2, 3 in the morning, right? Floods, anything you could think about, I've probably done it. So I'm like, if I could do that for somebody else, why can't I do it to myself? Okay. So that brings me back to another thing that I need to mention. Even though I didn't pay any money out of my pocket, you still have to show the bank that you have the money available. See, it don't work like you can just get all this for no money out of pocket and you don't have to show no money. No, it didn't work like that. So I had to show them that I had 25% of the original 135. But I ain't, but so did I save up 50,000? No. This is how that works. So maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, I was trying to get an apartment and I could not because they kept pulling my criminal history. I had some criminal history from 21, 22, and even though at the time I was managing luxury apartments, I would go, to another apartment around the corner and they would deny me, right? And man, I just didn't know what to do. And it forced me to like consider an option in substandard neighborhoods. And, I'm like, man, I don't want to do all this. So I'm like, wait a minute. I'm financially responsible. My credit is good. Maybe look at buying a home. So remember, the bank don't care about your criminal history. The bank just cares, are you credit worthy and are you going to pay back on time, right? And does all your history give them a predictor that that's going to happen? So I said, man, all right, let me try to get a home. Washington, D.C., making $40,000 a year at the time. The realtor basically laughed at me. He said, dude, you can't get no home, but I can get you a condo. I'm like, all right, shit. I'm used to living in apartments anyway. So I got a condo, paid $135 for a condo, put like 5, 6 grand down. And then I paid a little bit of extra every month, right? Maybe like 170, I think it was $110 I paid extra every month. And then after like 8, 9 years, when COVID hit and the rates went low, I said, man, let me get one of those HELOC things, so at that time I had paid it down to 100,000, but it was worth 200,000. So they gave me $60,000 for a home equity line of credit, which is the second mortgage. So that is the money that I showed the bank that I had for this deal, even though I did not use any of it, right? Since I did use any of it, and I still had it, I actually used that for my second deal, guys. Now, which was a single family home that I renovated, and I did the BRRRR strategy. I'll tell you guys all about that if you leave in the comments that you want to hear about this. Okay, so lessons learned, guys. A motivated seller and a motivated buyer and a clean negotiation can come a long way. Okay. Don't send any inspection reports to your lender unless they ask for it. That's a no-no. That almost killed my deal. Work with brokers. I'd rather work with brokers than local lenders because they have so many multiple options. You know what I mean? And they have so many, they'll sit down with you and say, what's your goal for this property? Man, Jim was a lifesaver. Keep good records, right? Keep good records and be able to, when you come and try to get a reduced price, you got to be able to back it up, right, with some type of data, okay? So if you guys want me to do another video in the future about where this property is, where this property is now, a year and a half later, how I manage it, some of the struggles I've been having because it hasn't been all peaches and cream, and and secondarily walk you through my other deal that I've done, which is a BRRRR that I renovated a home for. It's completely fixed up, and I have rented out to a Section 8 tenant. I also want to share with you guys on this video just a quick walkthrough, just how one of these 2 bedrooms look. This 2-bedroom was actually, and I'm not that good with technology, guys, but this particular 2-bedroom is this unit right here, right? This unit right here, this is that 2-bedroom, okay? I also have a 2-bedroom upstairs, but we're not talking about that. We're just talking about this one, okay? So we're just going to do a quick walkthrough of how I found it when these individuals moved out. So this is kind of like the living area. You can see they have been in there for a long time. I even thought I think this guy's mom died in this home several years before. That's one of the rooms. Boom, boom, boom. That's all the stuff that was left in there. I actually had to evict this tenant because that's another thing. What they say they're getting for rent, they may not be getting at all, right? That just may be something that they are saying in order to sell the property. But I also some tips and tricks to make sure you're getting the right information there as well. This is just the bathroom. Boom, boom, boom. I had to redo all of this, guys. So when I got that 30 grand, this is how I used it. I used 15 of it to renovate this apartment, right? So I renovated this whole apartment for 15,000, 2-bedroom. Any other 30 or so, but the other 15 I used to repair some roofs. I replaced 2 roofs. So I used 15 plus we had cash flow from the actual building, and I used that, the cash flow, to put with the 15. They equaled about 22,000 to put on 2 new roofs. Okay, guys. Yeah, man. So that's my journey. 6 units. Didn't pay a penny out of my pocket. The only money I paid was the inspection, which was about $1,500, and the insurance about $2,000. Let me know if you want me to do another video, guys. Thank you, and subscribe and share and all of that good stuff. Peace.